like anything is essentially the level of which a human being would be. With AGI, we have the human level intelligence, but infinitely scalable, only limited by the amount of compute in the world, right?
I was thinking about a couple of years back when, it first became clear that one of the next platform might be glasses, right? And then you have very contextual interfaces.
Because obviously just this tiny example with apps being rendered in real time, but we could probably think of countless of other examples where AI will automate processes. So how is your view on the job market, both today and in the near term?
Are not as easily replaced, especially I think what I already said, when there's when there's someone needs to take responsibility. Secondly, if humans are involved.
Welcome to this episode of HauseTalk. I have a guest, Felix, and we're going to do this, I guess, frequently from now on, talk about the newest within AI. We're both very passionate about AI and development, like the rapid development going on in the field. So yeah, Felix, do you want to quickly introduce yourself? I guess you were also a guest in our last episode, but if you want to just again quickly introduce yourself.
Yes, thanks, Anders, and thank you for having me. I'm pretty excited to do this, and Anders and I have been talking about this topic for many months. So I'm excited to share some of my thoughts and just start some discussion. A little bit about myself. I'm a consultant. I'm working with different sized companies, helping them to solve some of their big issues in terms of digital transformation. And recently I'm also looking to solve some problems using AI technology. And so I'm also professionally quite interested in this topic as well.
Yeah. And I think the topics of today is it's pretty exciting in my view. We're going to be very broad and talk of the sort of overall direction we're going with AI. So we're going to start with sort of the path to AGI, both how far we've come now and what needs to be achieved in order to achieve artificial general intelligence in the future. And we're going to talk a bit about AI's impact on the job market, like what kind of jobs are we looking into having in the future, what will be at risk and so on. And finally, we will also discuss the post-scarcity world. So if we assume AI at some point will lead to abundance in the world where we don't have scarcity of neither digital digital intelligence, or like physical things in the world, like what could that potential world look like? So yeah, very, very broad, but also very interesting, I think. Before we continue, I want to talk about the sponsor of this episode, Globist.ai, a platform designed to enhance brainstorming, research, and knowledge creation by integrating large language models with web data. At its core, Globist believes research should remain a deeply human process, one that fosters curiosity, critical thinking, and authentic discovery, all while being augmented by AI to make it more efficient and insightful. Whether you're a student on a thesis, a professor exploring topics, a content creator, or an artist brainstorming concepts, Globist offers tailored workflows to support your needs. Key features include the chain of actions, which tracks how your understanding evolves step by step, and the chain of knowledge, ensuring clear connections to your sources for better accountability and depth. This goes beyond traditional text-based tools, providing an interactive environment that helps organize and visualize ideas more effectively. It's also very easy to export your Globist canvas to a web page, either as a text-based view or a canvas view, and you can also export to static formats such as PDF and Markdown. And finally, you can of course invite collaborators from your team so you can work on canvases together. If you're looking to elevate your research process, visit Globist.ai today and sign up. You'll receive 1,000 free credits to get started. Thanks to Globist for sponsoring this video. So Felix, in terms of AGI, how is your understanding of AGI? I guess if we just define it first, like what actually what's actually meant when we say AGI or artificial general intelligence in your view?
Right. I think there's very differing definitions of that term, and is also evolved over time quite a bit. So AGI means artificial general intelligence, right? And so this word general in this term means basically that AI can be not just applied to one specific thing, but it can apply to all sorts of things, and ideally to everything that creates value, everything that is important to us humans. But most recently, there's a little bit of confusion, I think, of what that means in reality. Some of the bigger AI labs, they try to redefine it a little bit. For example, defining AGI more as something that can solve all thinkable problems in the digital space, but not in the real world. And there's also, other definitions that other people have. But yeah, what is your opinion on this? Like, what does AGI mean for you?
I think AGI for me means that it's essentially like AI will essentially have the capabilities of a regular human being within all professions, essentially. So it could be like, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's super intelligence, because I think we have like later on like ASI, artificial super intelligence, and stuff where we actually, where AI will actually break free and become way more intelligent than human beings. But I think AGI is essentially having an expert within any field as an AI. Like any human capability we can think of today will be in this AI. So if you ask the AI to be an accountant, it could do it just as well as an accountant. If you ask it to be a data scientist or computer scientist or psychologist, like anything is essentially the level of which a human being would be. So kind of imagine it this way, that with AGI, we have the human level intelligence, but infinitely scalable. So we can multiply it, only limited by the amount of compute in the world, right? So that's also why like AGI would be so groundbreaking to reach, because it means we can scale humanity infinitely in theory. So that's my take on it. Something that's equivalent to any human profession, essentially.
Yeah, to be honest, for me, I believe that it is quite hard to define it before we actually reach it, because we don't know how it will actually turn out. So, for example, there's some people that believe, okay, we've already almost reached AGI because AI models can accurately at least simulate or accurately mirror some professions or some PhD level knowledge. But at the same time, there's other questions, like, for example, if we say that it should reach all like completely generalized knowledge, then does that also include, for example, domains that we don't consider valuable as humans? And so then that's where also alignment, AI alignment comes in, right? Where we need to ask the question: can we actually align this model on what humans want and what the values of humans are?
I think one important aspect for me is also consistency, because it's true that with many of the new models, GPT-5, Grok 4, and so on, we actually reach human level capabilities in many tasks already, but and also more consistently than previously. But I think to reach true AGI, we also need to trust. We need to have trust in the model that they don't suddenly hallucinate, and that they don't need that much handholding, because for a human professional, you can give a task and you can expect that task to be solved without necessarily doing a lot of reviews, right? So I think we need to reach the same level of consistency with AI. Arguably, AI can be more consistent than humans in many aspects already, but I think we need to reach it at sort of an overall level. And then I guess there's also the whole discussion about like, to reach AGI, like do we need to also reach physical AGI? Like, do we need to have these model encompassed in like humanoids or like as well in order to reach true AGI? Because it's true, we can like, we'll probably reach digital AGI before we reach the sort of AGI in the physical world. But in order to say we've achieved AGI, like, do we also need to have the physical aspect? And I'm not sure, but I don't know. Do you have any, like, what's your opinion on that?
So I think in my mind, it's actually quite an important factor to actually achieve real world AI, or let's say real world generalized AI, to have generalized AI at all. And the reason for that, I think, is grounding. So for me, I believe that to actually mirror something that is human or human-like and can also solve problems like humans, or even solve problems better in a generalized way, I believe that the AI would have to understand the world that we live in, and not just from text or from descriptions, but basically first-hand experience. And so I think two things that are important, right? The number one is to have a grounding in reality. So say physics, or understanding the 3D world, right? But then also having some kind of constraint, having some kind of constraints, where you don't just have all the possibilities, but you have a certain mission or a certain goal, certain restrictions that apply to you. And for us, that's very clear, right? We are mortal beings, so we need to care about like survival. We need to care about things like reproduction. And so I think these things are super important for our human experience, and also for who we are as humans and how we think.
Yeah. Yeah.
So actually, one thing that I wanted to share with you is about Genie 3. I think we've talked about it a little bit already earlier, but Genie 3 is a new model that is developed by Google, and it's quite exciting to me. Because it shows really what is possible with AI, and where things could go. It's kind of an early glimpse. So I want to show you some quick video to just explain it to you. So just to explain, Genie 3 is a world model, and it's not just a video model like others, like Sora, for example, where you can input a prompt and it generates an AI video, but it actually first of all, it generates this video stream in real time in 30 FPS, but also it allows for interaction. So you press a key, like in a computer game, and basically the video output reacts to that. And not only that, but it has some internal consistency. So for example, you can paint a wall, and then the paint will stay on the wall, and it will remember that this wall is painted. So it's really like a world model that they are building. And I'm going to show you some clip to kind of illustrate that a little bit.
And you said 30 FPS?
Yes, I think so, yeah.
Yeah, so we just found out that we can actually use an image and the videos to prompt them all. And in this particular case, we found that we can actually use paintings. For example, this is Nighthawk by Edward Hopper.
A very famous picture.
Very famous picture, and from 1942. And yeah, basically we asked Genie 3 to let us walk into the painting.
So this painting is of a very vivid image, a street corner at nighttime. You're looking in through the glass to see a man and a woman leaning up against a bar, and then someone serving drinks the other side of the counter. It's got these like rich greens, the pavement underneath, the way the light falls is really, really evocative. But now that you're navigating this space and turning around, I mean, this is really extraordinary. It's like you've imagined what would be on either side. Can you go around the back of the man and the woman? I want to see the back of their heads. And you can. So it's like got all dimensions of the original painting.
So this is already pretty exciting, right? You can actually step into a painting and not just make it 3D, but also interact with it. But it goes even further. So for example, if you see the next demo here, where they're kind of riding this jet ski and jumping over the this slide,
Ramp.
this
I'm
ramp.
trying. I'm a bit too slow. I don't know. I'm not
What's
sure
it going
if
to do
I
on
So
the
they're-
video? I mean,
They're
and it
jumping.
splashes when it hits the
Let's
water.
see let's look back.
And when you look round to the back, there's a trail in the water, exactly as you would expect from a real jet ski.
So exactly. So it actually can mimic physics, right? It's not 100% correct, but it can actually understand the world. And when there's water, for example, represented, then it should behave in a certain way, right? And also interact with you as the protagonist, let's say.
That's crazy, because even like I'm sure the technology here is different, but if you think about like generative AI, like even the image generation models, and you then think 30 FPS, like normally you would expect some kind of hallucination or errors, right? But that it's the fact that it can consistently render 30 FPS and not hallucinate, like have weird artifacts coming in suddenly is kind of crazy. And you can do this with anything, right? Like you can feed it any sort of context, and then you can step into that world of that context.
Yeah. So this is just based on a prompt. I think you can see it here somewhere. I'm not sure if they're saying it, but basically this is just the prompt is just jet ski. In jet ski around the waters in a certain island. So it's basically just a text prompt, and this is what comes out. Of course, you can also make it more detailed, and you can also input an image, right? And then let the environment build from there.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, it is pretty crazy. One other thing that I wanted to show you, just one little clip.
Could you get to a point where you just simulate the first, I don't know, single-celled organism and allow it to evolve inside of Genie, or, and actually watch the process of evolution happen in a virtual environment?
That's a great question. And that's kind of the dream of like an A-life open-ended evolution community. I think maybe the worlds that we create are not fully rich enough, but I definitely think that we're getting along that path, right? So open-ended evolution and A-life, they've been designing worlds that could facilitate this kind of thing, typically in code. And so this could be an alternative approach to getting maybe richer real-world simulations. And so in theory, I mean, we've made quite a lot of progress pretty fast. But if you got the simulation to be fully like the real world, and it had the kind of objectives and constraints that lead to these kind of evolutionary steps, then it's definitely plausible. But I can't say it's definitely there yet.
It's not a direct answer, but I actually tried. I think like there is maybe a very basic example of like game of life, right? So it has four rules, right? And then I actually tried using Veo to simulate it, right? You give it an image and it doesn't work. Like it does look like it's evolving, and if you don't know the rules, you would look like it looks like reasonable, like different pixels light up but it doesn't follow the 4 rules of the game, right? I think this is a good example for what our current like models are able to do and what they are less like still limited in their ability to follow specific rules to actually evolve maybe life forms. I think you need much more kind of like ability to do both, to also simulate the physical world, but also kind of like follow some basic rules of physics in a very kind of like accurate way. And yes, and constrained way. And I think we're not like, we see some glimpse of it, but it's definitely very far from being able to have evolution in on a GPU.
Well, thank you for going philosophical with me.
Yeah, so that's it. Basically, this is kind of relating to what I shared earlier, that I believe to actually make AI intelligent or more intelligent or more human-like, we probably do need these physical constraints and understanding of the physical world. Yeah.
It reminds me of a discussion we had not too long ago about sort of the future of apps and software in general, because now that we see that we can have AI generate this environment in real time, like I wouldn't think personally we are that far from actually being able to render like apps in real time, so that we don't need in the future constrained apps that has a defined interface for all users, but you can actually have, I guess, apps and like UIs that morph over time, just renders I guess then 100 plus frames per second on a mobile device. But basically instead of programming, developing apps, you have an AI that's given a job, like you're my calendar app, or you're my like whatever app, like my Slack or whatever, like then it basically just renders that in real time. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. I mean, to some extent, we're trying this already with dynamic journeys, dynamic customer journeys, or dynamic interfaces. For example, I worked on this. It's kind of an AI-assisted sales tool, and instead of having just a static landing page for selling a product, right, you could actually generate that landing page in a personalized way based on, for example, the campaign that you clicked on, or based on your customer data. And so it's much more tailored to you and what you need. But I think what you're talking about is going even one step further, right? That you don't even have any code anymore.
I guess what I'm saying, like right now we're at this stage of vibe coding. So we have AI build our apps, but I guess the step after that would be that we just have AI generate the visual frames output for the device's screen, right? Like just in real time generate and based on inputs, like where the user presses or interacts, like then that defines sort of the next frames after.
Yeah, just to go one step back, I think there's like a couple of phases that we need to go through to actually get there, right? Like, so right now, we are still in this phase where it's pretty static. You might have some rules, so it's like a tree shape, so you can follow different paths in the app or in the website, but it's still pretty static. And then there's some parts, like for example, content that can be generated by AI models, generative AI. But then the second step would be to actually completely regenerate pages or parts of the app using AI. And I imagine that could even work with just, the AI writing code, like it's done now with Lovable or Replit and so on. But I think what you're talking about is the even next step behind that. So you don't even write code anymore, but just like we saw with Genie, all you see, the output is actually AI generated, and essentially that would be a simulation, right? The AI is hallucinating or like imagining how the app, how the function would look like, and that way it can actually solve your problem or provide a certain value. Like, let's say it's something simple like a calculator app, right? Instead of coding the calculator, it will just imagine this calculator in a very accurate way, and then it will also output the right numbers when you type in some sort of equation. And I think that's pretty exciting, because then you can imagine all sorts of things. You can even imagine replacing complete software products that you have on the market now. And I think we talked about this a little bit earlier. Elon Musk is looking into founding a new company or a new product called Macrohard, and they want to basically replace Microsoft, which sounds crazy as an idea, but if you think about it this way, and if you look at Genie 3, for example, it suddenly becomes much more plausible, right?
Yeah, and I think just to comment on your example with the calculator as well, like I think it can lead to way better. I mean, arguably we can also discuss like the future of interface, if it's even going to be screen based in the future, if it's going to be virtual reality, or Elon Musk Neuralink is also a potential future for UX. But if we just stick to the screen, if we have a calculator app on a screen that's made frame by frame by AI in real time, basically it would have the option of adapting over time, so people may interact differently with the apps. Like you may use some functions of in this case a calculator more often than other people, and in time the UI could simply morph to your specific behavior, right? Because it
Yeah.
knows you and it's not constrained by some developer that made the app like 2 years ago, can in real time sort of improve the app and make the perfect calculator for you and the most efficient interaction. So I think that's pretty interesting as well. And of course that same concept can be applied to other like other platforms as well, if the next step is augmented reality and then whatever comes after that. Yeah.
Yes, I think you're making a really good point, because this is something that I was thinking about a couple of years back, when it first became clear that one of the next platform might be glasses, right? And then you have very contextual interfaces. But the thing that I couldn't really solve in my head is, if you have an app right now, you have this very clear frame. Like, you have a screen that has a certain aspect ratio, and you have an app, and you maybe have a responsive app so you can resize it, but that's about it, right? But then now, when it comes to I think spatial computing, how they call it, it's suddenly, there's so many more dimensions, right? First of all, it's 3D, but then also it's very contextual. So maybe you want the app to react to certain things in your environment, and just by having a rule-based system and hard-coded application, I think it would be super difficult to achieve, and it would basically make the development of an app magnitudes more difficult and time consuming. But now, when you think about AI, this could actually solve it, because AI will be able to integrate all the context and all this information and produce the tailored and perfect outcome solution for your case.
Even something simple as like, right, what we do now with web apps, like breakpoint. We have different breakpoint for different screen size, and it seems very like weird that we have these very well defined. But in the future, if it's gonna be vision space, like augmented reality, like there's gonna be so much UI to create in all kinds of sizes and contexts, and so it just becomes so more flexible if this can be driven by AI. Yeah.
Right. It doesn't have to be like a window anymore, right? There's some content that can be immersive. There's some content that is contextual. Let's say if you have a note and you like to put it on your fridge, it's on your fridge. Maybe there's even some skeuomorphic elements again. You know how everyone hated on those like leather or like wooden kind of interfaces. Yeah. But maybe that makes sense again if it's in your world, right? And it actually looks like an element that is populating your world. So
I would say at least if it's going onto the elements, like that is not. Yeah, I don't know. I was probably one of the people who was very excited when they got rid of the skeuomorphism, but I think it had its role in the early days, like in the early iPhone days, because people needed to transition to digital life and they needed some kind of reference. But once people became digitally native, it didn't really make sense anymore, because like, why have a big microphone on your recording, like voice recording app when it's not really
But this is super funny. Because sometimes, you realize, like, for example, the desktop is called desktop because before people would have stuff on their desk, right? And then they would, maybe put it away in some folder somewhere and put it in the shelf. And we still have this taxonomy, even though for me, I live a very different lifestyle. I don't typically have one desk where I put all my stuff, so it doesn't really apply. But it's funny how this still carries through, and I think we will still have that actually in the future. So maybe some
I think those terms probably stick because no one really thinks about a traditional desktop. Like we kind of just used to those digital terms now. But I agree, it's funny to think about the history. And I think like speaking of these things and potential for AI generated software and so on, like maybe we should talk about the next topic, which is the impact on jobs, because obviously just this tiny example with apps being rendered in real time, but we could probably think of countless of other examples where AI will automate processes. So how is your view on the job market, both today and in the near term? Because I think what we're seeing is a very rapid development of AI, and it's difficult to project. I would say it's very difficult to project like 10 years, 20 years into the future, but because it's so rapid. So what is your take on the very near term, like both now and the next like couple of years up until maybe the like 2000?
Yeah, I think this is a very interesting topic because it affects, or it will affect, all of us. And so for me, I'm actually I'm doing some research, or I'm looking into this topic because, first of all, personally, I also want to see where where we will go in my industry and then also in the wider economy. I think it already makes an impact now. I see that some certain tasks can be automated or can be sped up. That on the one hand means that I can do more in less time, but it also means that sometimes maybe clients, they would demand to get the work done in less time, which can be quite challenging because of course at the moment AI can do a lot, but it can definitely not do everything. And a lot of the integrating a lot of the parts is still really important to do as a human at the moment. I think there's basically three rules that you can think of when it comes to how the job market develops. We won't be able to predict everything, right? How the jobs will be evolving and which jobs will get replaced at first. But I think we can think of a couple of rules that define this transition, let's say. And I think the first one is that it's definitely not from 0 to 1. There's some jobs that will be replaced faster than others, but most of the jobs they will still exist in a couple years from now, but they will change a lot, and it depends on the job of how fast they will change. So, for example, when it comes to a job like, let's say, a lawyer, I think a lawyer is still very much needed because you also have the responsibility. Someone needs to take the responsibility, and at the moment, humans can take legal responsibility. So they are the ones that still need to be in the loop. They might not be needed anymore, or at least you don't have to have that many paralegals, because lawyers can just use AI to assist them to do research, to interpret laws, and so on. Some people that might be hired as a paralegal in the past will just not get hired, and so in total, this workforce will be decreasing. One very simple graph that I made, and it's not anything too crazy. Can you see this? Yeah.
Yep.
So it's a very simple graph, but basically what I want to show is that typically the replacement or the adoption of new technology in general happens in an S-curve shape. So it starts relatively slowly, then it speeds up, and then it kind of levels off. And so I think depending on the job, these curves look a little bit different. So, for example, if we talk about autonomous driving and the job as a driver, I think in the next few years that replacement can happen pretty quickly, and the exposure to AI is quite large. So let's say maybe this this yellow curve here, because a large part of your job is really just driving. There's also a couple other jobs that you have. Maybe, for example, if you're a trucker, you also need to maybe check for the goods. You need to make sure that everything is secured on the truck. And then you need to maybe also help with the loading or unloading. But it's a relatively small part of your job. So I think a lot of it can be replaced pretty quickly once autonomous driving is mature enough. But then if you look at other jobs, they are not as easily replaced, especially I think what I already said, when there's someone needs to take responsibility. Secondly, if humans are involved, I think a good rule of thumb is like the more humans are involved, the more exposure to humans you have, the harder it is for AI at the moment to take over that role. And
even if it does, technically there'll probably still be a big demand for it because humans want the human contact, right? So there might be like subjective reasons for why those jobs will also still be around, even in a like post-humanoid world.
Right. I guess the third one is just having very skilled, very precise manipulation in the real world. This will also be possible to replace by AI at some point, but it's not at the moment. And in the next few years, I think it will not reach like wide scale replacement. So I think these three things kind of affect that. And then what you said as well with the human exposure and human touch is this third curve, right? It doesn't actually go to 100%. So, for example, if you think about nurses or healthcare, I think there will be robots assisting the nurses, and we need that because in a lot of countries we don't have enough skilled workers that can do that. And, for example, care for the elderly, but a large part of it can be replaced, and then the rest, is going to be done by humans in the future as well.
Yeah, and I think just now that we have the like example of an S curve, like I think it's crazy to think about the number of S curves that like Elon Musk and Tesla are exposed to, like, because essentially they, like, of course, Elon Musk has many different companies, but it's just crazy to think that they're both on autonomy now with driverless FSD launched in like the robotaxi network launched in Austin and I think California as well. And they're in the humanoid space. They are in like AI, like Grok is one of the most advanced AI models. What is your sort of what is your take on this? Like where do you think Tesla is like headed with all these S curves that they're basically being a part of, like basically in almost any of these AI related areas?
Yeah, I think those S curves, right, as you described it, they will kind of accumulate and they will basically amplify each other. So I think a good example is the Optimus robot, where you have the brain, right? You have the autonomy, which is now maturing in the car, and then you also have the high production capability that is also extremely important. Like basically, machine builds the machine, the machine that builds the machine. Yeah, you have a bunch of different S curves that are basically amplifying each other. So I think it will be a huge impact.
Yeah, it's I guess it's the synergies of all these S curves that are just like I can't really. I think it's going to be hard to imagine like a world where like in the case of Tesla, imagine they build all these humanoids, like hundreds of thousands of Optimus robots. They can build their products. They can build the cars, whatever they produce as well. Everything is going to sort of, as you say, amplify each other.
Basically, there's a quote, a famous quote: "The future is already here. It's just not evenly distributed." And I think that applies here very well because adoption really varies from country to country, but also from company to company. And it depends a lot on whether the company has a high level of digitization. For example, has accessible data readily available, processes already in place. Second one is also about the regulation in that place. if the regulation landscape is conducive for adopting new innovations or not. And then the third one, I think, is also about labor cost, because in countries with a very low labor cost, it might not be as straightforward to adopt automation technologies such as AI. However, in countries like the US or in the European Union, labor cost is extremely high. So there's a lot of incentive to automate and to replace with AI.
Yeah.
And then there's a kind of an interesting case in countries, for example, like Germany, where actually digitization is lagging behind. Also, regulation is very high, so it actually hinders the adoption. But at the same time, also the labor cost is very high. So this will lead, in my mind, to a slower adoption than in other countries like the US or in South Korea.
And I think in the future we'll probably do a whole episode on Europe and the regulatory landscape. Like it's obviously shared among all European countries. Denmark is very advanced in terms of digitalization, but I'm also very worried about the regulation coming in from the European Union and if it's going to lead to overall slower adoption across the European Union, because we need the growth and we need the advantages that AI will provide for the economy. And if it's slowed down too much by regulation, it's going to be very problematic for the entire continent, I think. But
because if you break it down like this, it might lead to actually competitive disadvantage.
Yeah, I think it's already is doing that, because it's very difficult to be an AI startup in Europe, even if all the regulation, like the AI Act, has not been fully implemented yet. Just the fear of it coming and sort of the negativity around like not being able to just innovate and because a lot of regulation is coming, you need to comply with. It's very difficult for especially smaller companies to stay compliant. So I think it's a huge issue, and I think we should actually do a full episode on that one day, because it worries me as well as a European, as a Dane, to see where this is actually headed in a future that's so rapidly accelerating as we see.
Yeah, me too. I think this is a very important topic. I don't know. I don't have a solution right now for this, but it's definitely, I think, worth to explore in more detail.
Yeah. So just circling back to sort of the S-curves, overall, what we're going to see is like synergies between S-curves. If we have self-driving vehicles, we have humanoid robots that can do almost any physical labor. When all these S-curves enhance each other, basically converge. Yeah. When this happens, like a lot of people theorize that we are going to look into a future of abundance. So essentially, you could say now we have some sort of digital abundance, like it doesn't cost that much to be on the internet, and you can multiply anything as much as you want, but we don't have abundance in the physical world. We still need to do a lot of labor to be able to buy food and transport ourselves around the world and so on. But if we imagine a future where all these S-curves converge, then we might actually get way less scarcity in the future. What's your take on this? What's your time frame? If you, I know none of us can predict it, but what's your impression of this future?
I think that we all will have, in general, the general population will have much more access to goods and services than they have now. And so it definitely will be, in this sense, an age of very high prosperity and access to goods and services, right? So you already mentioned software is easy to provide. Basically, there is a very low cost, marginal cost of production. If you, for example, supply software to 5 people instead of 1 person, you might have to pay a little bit more for the server cost, but that's about it. But if it comes to services that involve humans delivering that service, for example, food delivery, right?
Mhm.
Or if you think about products, anything you can buy, there's always a cost involved when you produce these products and services.
Yeah.
And so in the future, I think a lot of these things, as you said, can be much lower. So the cost will the marginal cost of production will trend towards zero, and so it will be just crazy how cheap everything will become. And I think a pretty good analogy for me of this scenario is actually how it feels to live in China, in some of the larger tier 1 cities, for example. Um, let's say Shanghai, Shenzhen, because I don't know if you've been you've been to Shanghai, right, recently.
Yeah.
And I think it's crazy how affordable all the services are, especially in respect to the high income that people have. So it is super cheap to order things. You can basically order anything at any time of the day.
I was so amazed when I ordered something to the hotel room from WeChat, and a robot just delivered it directly to the room after no time. And also, as you say, like everything is so affordable. Like you can go anywhere, just getting a car anywhere, and you really don't pay that much. So it almost feels like this future, like driverless future, where you can just book a car, come and pick you up and drive you anywhere. Of course, it's with a human driver. In most, I know they have some I think driverless taxi services in China as well. But the ones I used was with a driver. But from a cost perspective, it almost feels like that kind of abundant future, as you mentioned.
Exactly. Of course, at the moment, this is only possible because of this very large labor force and very, low labor cost. But I think in the future, AI can make this possible without actually having to rely on people, and without potentially exploiting people, right? And so I think that's the exciting part about it. And it just feels completely different. I fear that on the one hand, it might make some people not value products or services as much as as we do now, because it just feels like you can get anything, and you might just order something and then not use it. So I think that's a whole different problem that might arise from it. But
in this case, we would also assume that everything is then sustainable, right? Like, because I don't think we can have a super abundant future unless it's also sustainable. And that's also why I think this kind of future is actually critical for us to solve the environmental climate problems and so on, because we need to sort of maximize our potential, have AI solve most of our problems as a civilization, essentially, right? So I guess in this kind of abundant future, at least my presumption would be that even though we then would spend a lot, we would consume a lot, it would be because it's possible and sustainable, right? Or what is your take?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like you can already see with some products, the rare earth metals, for example, they are not easily accessible. And so if you don't recycle or reduce the content in your product, then you just won't be able to produce anything. And for example, with production, of course, companies want to sell a lot, and so they also need to make sure that they can build a supply chain for that. And so I believe that AI will assist in also making that possible. You can already see it,
but
right?
That's what I mean. Like we will consume so much in the future, but every time something is consumed and then thrown out, there'll be like a so many robots just picking up this item and like dismantling everything, like recycling every element of like physical element. Like it's gonna be down to the almost like the atomic level, right? So that's my
we'll
point.
have the real world Wall-E.
Yeah.
The Wall-E robot running around. Right. I think it's an exciting scenario to explore, and I think it will happen sooner than later. I'm definitely within our lifetimes. So I think it's a very exciting time.
Yeah, I think the extreme scenario would be like that we essentially see physical stores like a supermarket just being like a Netflix business model. Like you just pay a subscription every month and you can
True.
just go take whatever you want, right? Because we go from that the price of atoms is gonna be similar to the price of bits in the digital world, right? Yeah.
Yes, I think a lot of things that now are just not possible to do as a subscription, they will be subscription models. Also, of course, mobility, right?
Yeah.
In Germany, there's a mobility ticket that costs you, I think, almost 60 euros a month, and you can ride all the regional trains and public transport. But they are already running into problems because they cannot cover the cost, right? But in the future, with driverless cars, the cost will go to not zero, but it will go to very low, like below 50 cents per mile for sure, maybe even lower. 20 cents. I think I saw some calculations, 20 cents per mile, like almost 10 cents per kilometer. So in that sense, it will be possible to do a lot of to change a lot of the business model to subscription models.
Yeah.
And maybe not even subscription, because at that point, what does money even mean? So that's
exactly.
the next question to ask.
Yeah, I think that could also be an interesting topic for the future. Like, how do you actually secure your financial future in a world of both abundance and in an environment where more and more jobs are gonna disappear and so on. But I think we can have for a future topic as well. Yeah. Have any last comments before we end?
No, I think I said it before. I think it will definitely, there will be so many changes within our lifetimes. Probably a lot of challenges as well. But it's definitely one of the most exciting times to be alive. And so I'm super excited to explore these topics more with you in future podcasts.
Yeah, me too. So Felix, thank you so much for joining on this episode of HauseTalk, and I'm sure we'll do way more in the future. So for everyone, thank you also for watching, and stay tuned for more talks like this. So Felix, see
Thanks,
you.
Anders.
Yeah.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye bye.